morning, Masalamatle. Thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to Kusile Breakfast Show. It is 6 o'clock on the dot on Vuselago. Ngulungelele makakulang na sifisa ngumala sasambukuti. Nibene langa lelihle itolo. Good morning and welcome. Kukumbuda njukuti. You can also watch us on YouTube. Sifisa, how do you do this morning?
I'm doing very cold, Lulu. I don't know about you. For most people that don't know.
I think the whole week in J temperatures have decreased.
On Monday, but today I think colleague Vumingo Sutsite Namuhla ngathi is the first day le makha ukuthi sesingene ebusika kahle.
Yes, sesingena. All right, thanks so much.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good as well. Sibonga nje umdali sifisa ukuthi sivukile namhla ekseni. It's important ukuthi njalo ekseni mawuvuka you praise the Lord ubonga uNkulunkulu ukuthi you're up.
Ekseni nasebusuku before ulale every day. Sikwenda every day logo without faltering. Lulu sibaphathele namhla.
Yeah, all right, on the show namuhla sitabeke sikhulumisana na Sihle Nkabinze lo domestic trade manager enkampanini ya Hulumende Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority ISIPA. Enkampani ke lena yahulumende lekhanga bahlanyile imali noma ke ama investors. Sitabe sikhuluma nge trade fair, sitabe sikhuluma nge buy Eswatini platform, upcoming trade events kanye na ngema issues that are affecting trade in Eswatini nekuthi le inkinga leti tingacaduleka kanjani. Sitakhuluma ukuthi live la kaNgwane lisebenzisana nemave amaningi futhi etindzabeni te import, export, trade and investment, and one of these countries is the UK. Kanti ke ngekusho kwe report ye Department ye Business and Trade khona even la UK lekhokho emhla ka 3 May 2023. Total goods and services between the UK and Eswatini was £23 million in the 4 quarters to the end of 2022, which is a decrease of 36.1%. Siteka leti njengabandi naye enkabinze ukuva kabanti ngema challenges that are faced with Eswatini masibuka trade and investment sector. Siphinde sikhuluma kabanti nje nge trade fair sidakumela ukuthi yabo trade fair this year, international trade fair, that is also a platform ukuthi bosomabhizinisi balapha ekhaya Eswatini nabo bakhona ukuthi bakhangise ngemikhiqido yabo. Sifuna ukwenza nje ukuthi siyakhumula solo ukuthi trade fair kahle ngesizafuse COVID-19. What are some of these issues nje lababhekene nawo ema traders efu namhla ekseni at 6:30?
Kanzike nga 7:30 we are honored to have a member of the diplomatic corps lapha kaNgwane, European ambassador to Eswatini, Desislava Shumelova, to speak on Europe Day, which is on the 9th of May every year, which celebrates peace and unity in Europe. That date marks the anniversary of the historic Schuman Declaration. Le set out the idea kube a new form of political cooperation in Europe, which would make war between Europe's nations unthinkable. For the second time now, this day falls on the back of a Europe that is devastated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which started on the 24th of February, 2022. Now, as the world suffers the effects of this war, Eswatini is not exempt. The need for firm and international collaborative multilateralism is a need. Eswatini iyaqhubeka nekuzuza ekubambisaneni nenhlangano lesingasho ukuthi European Union on a multilateral level. Eswatini has been a partner with Europe for over 50 years now, Lulu. People don't know this. Over 50 years, whereby we have seen the European Union be a reliable partner in Eswatini's development. Desislava Shumelova, European ambassador to Eswatini, will join us to speak on those developmental programs. Laba Kusile by inhlangano yaga EU. Siyatgenelo ukuthi lonyaka European Year of Skills sibabonile emnyakeni lophelile wabaphakamisa Europe Year for the Youth. Yaqhubeka ke nasemnyakeni walonyaka manje ke bayihlanganisa na Europe Year of Skills sibabonile ke baphakamisa libhodi lebantu labasha Youth Sounding Board. We want to talk about that development ekutheni basaqhubeka nekuthuthukisa youth participation and youth engagement entindzabeni tabo fostering ma-law processes and policy making decisions batimisele kuphathisa deep letinye ke tinhlelo kuthuthukisa live la kaNgwane konke lokho nga 7:30 when EU ambassador joins us.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back. It's 5 minutes after 6. We are Manje.
why should we pay our TV license?
The content on our local television is actually more up to date. The industry is enhanced.
It is a criminal offense not to pay your TV license and attracts a fine of 500 emalangeni or 6 months imprisonment.
And the industry is definitely blooming, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what we have for you. But we'll be right back just after the break, and we'll give you more of Miss V.
Pay my TV license. That's why I can enjoy the benefits of an enhanced industry and keep track with recent transformation.
Mommy, who paid for a TV license and what are they paying for?
The owners of TV set and a gadget with a tuner like DVD set have to pay.
Pay your TV license at NetBank with the details provided on screen. Or use your cell phone via the mobile money pay. You could also visit your nearest post office and pay there. Pay your TV license via Eswatini Mobile Imali. Any TV device retailer can purchase a license to trade. Pay your TV license and enhance the industry.
Imizuzu lesiphohlongo solo ikumbene insimbi yesithupha lomhla ekuseni ake sibuke indaba lapha ekhaya. Silo inkosi Mswati wesithathu sibonene namabhalane jikelele wenhlangano yemave ledlelano nemengisi iCommonwealth Dr Patricia Scotland. Ingonyama ibe nemhlangano namabhalane lapho batsingitse khona indaba tekuthuthukisa insha kanye ke netekuthuthukisa tekuchwephesha.
We know how nice to see you too. Very lucky. So nice to see you.
Isisekhona lapha evende mangisi ingwenyama silo inkosi Mswati wesithathu sibe nemhlangano namabhalane jikelele wenhlangano yemave ladlelana nemangisi iCommonwealth Patricia Scotland. Lo mhlangano bewukade ukuvusetela divumelwane neqinisekisa ingwenyama eMaswati ukuthi iCommonwealth itaqhubeka nekubambisana kusekela live leSwatini ekuthuthukeni. Ingwenyama naye emabhalane jikelele bathi ngithethe indzaba letiphathelene nensha. Ingwenyama ithi emave kaCommonwealth kumele asungule tinhlelo letitawusita tiphindze futhi tisekele kuthuthukisa insha. Kuthuthukisa tebuchwephesha netekuthengiselana ngetebuchwephesha nekuxhumana nguletinye tinhlelo letibheke ukuthi tibuketwe kabanti. Silo inkosi Mswati wesithathu siphindze futhi savetela amabhalane kabanti ngemsebenzi wolukhetho lotawuqala kude mathudane eSwatini njengoba kubhalisa kuyaqala mhla 10 kulesetulu. iCommonwealth yethembise kusekela leSwatini kucecesha tisebenti tahulumende kutekuxhumana netebuchwephesha. Sakhiwo sangqondongqondo ephocweni sitawudlala inzima lenkulu kuleSwatini njengoba onke emave abheke ukuthi abe netakhiwo letitawusekela lo msebenzi wekuthuthukisa tebuchwephesha. Lebe basingethe imbubu yemhlaba kulomhlangano bekungumvane nkosiguduza indvuna itangephandle nekubambisana lamanye emave Thuli Dladla nalonxusele live leSwatini kuleli leNgilandi Her Excellency Thandazile Mbuyisa kubala labambalwa. Live leSwatini labalunga lenhlangano ledlelana nemangisi iCommonwealth ngeminyaka 1968 uma lithola inkhululeko embusweni wemangisi. Angemashumi lasihlanu nesithupha emalunga alenhlangano lokufaka ekhathi lona leSwatini kanomsebenzi wayo kusekela emavela ngemalunga asetama kuthuthuka. Live leSwatini liyaqhubeka nokuba lilunga lelibambelele emgomeni yalenhlangano. LeSwatini liyatimbandzakanya futhi liyatisekela tonke tinhlelo letiqhutshwa ngulenhlangano. Ngaphambi kokuthi kufike lusuku lokubekwa kwenkosi yemangisi Charles wesithathu, silo inkosi Mswati wesithathu kanye nabaholi bemave langephansi kwalenhlangano bebakade bamenyiwe inkosi yemangisi emhlanganweni wokuthingitha tindzaba tensha eMarlborough House lapha eLondon. Kulomhlangano Silo kunye nebaholi bemave bavumelene ngekuchubeka nekubumbana kanye nokusekela insha ukuthi ikhone ukutimela nekuthuthukisa. Etindzabeni ubika Pholile Maziya eLondon.
Mvunankulu Cleopas Dlamini sowuthumise inzima ledlalwa inhlangano yemhlaba yokuphuma nekungena kwempahla emaheke iWorld Customs Organization ekwenteni isiqiniseko kuthi luhlangothi lwekuphuma nekungena kwempahla eveni liyathuthuka. Mvunankulu kusho lokhu ngesikhathi yemukela amabhalane jikelele wenhlangano yemhlaba yekungena nekuphuma kwempahla emahekeni Dr. Kuniyo Mikuria emahhovisini etindvuna tembuso eMbabane.
Akhuluma emahhovisini elibandla letindvuna tembuso, umhlonishwa Mvunankulu Cleopas Dlamini nakemukela amabhalane wenhlangano yemhlaba yekuphuma nekungena kwempahla emahekeni Dr. Kuniyo Mikuria uthumise lenhlangano yokwesekeleni luhlangothi lwekuphuma nekungena kwempahla eveni ikakhulu libandla elibutha umthelo wahulumende kuleli iEswatini Revenue Service.
Secretary General, you have come at an opportune time where the country has adopted the new National Development Plan for the period 2023-24 to 26-27. The National Development Plan is a strategic document that guides and represents an opportunity for government to deliver on the aspirations and desires of Eswatini. The country is also implementing the post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan, which entails resuscitating the economy through project-based approach driven by the private sector, supported and enabled by His Majesty's government.
Mvunankulu uphindze waveta ukuthi njengoba libandla lelibutha umthelo wahulumende liyingcenye yalenhlangano litawuzuza kulokunyenti ikakhulu ekubutheni umthelo nasemisebentini lenteka emahekeni akuleli. Mabhalane wenhlangano yemhlaba ekuphuma nekungena kwempahla emahekeni Dr. Kuniyo Mikuria uthi kusukela lasungulwa libandla elibutha umthelo wahulumende kuleli iEswatini Revenue Service ngeminyaka wa 2011 likhonile kwenta imisebenzi leminengi lebonakalako lapha eveni.
Our major objective is, our vision is borders divide, customs connect. Therefore, ensure connectivity at the borders is our utmost objective. And for that, we produce standards or providing assistance.
Emalunga emave lakulenhlangano angetulu kwa 185 mhlaba wonke kufaka ekhatsi nelive leSwatini. Etindzabeni kubika zodwa Dlamini na Themba Shabangu eMbabane.
Liphini Mvunankulu Themba Masuku lithi tinhlangano letingekho ngephansi kwahulumende letigcine bantfwana labanzinzile tilibambise kakhulu live leSwatini. Masuku uthi-ke letinhlangano tigcine bantfwana labalahlwa abadali nalabaphambene nemtsetfo ngaphandle kwekulekelelwa nguhulumende. Masuku ushito lokhu endlini yetimphunga ngesikhathi yesekela sishukumiso sekuthi kwemukelwe imigomo yekuvikela bantfwana labagcinwe ngemakhaya alabanzinzile, the Children's Protection and Welfare Residential Child Care Facilities Regulations of 2022.
Lesishukumiso singene endlini ngembunga umntwana enkosi uMshengu lesekelwe imbunga Mkhululi Dlamini.
Uma uthatha kubuka mengameli kuye kube netinhlelo lokhanza ukuthi tiye tibe khona kulama facilities. Kusinikile ke mengameli kubona lokuthi umhlonishwa DPM kusukela nyalo kulama regulations kuyaveta ukuthi batatelusa letindzawo letigcina labantwana.
Siswati hlonipha kumati umuntu lomdzala kwati ukuthi na ufika endzaweni ukhanza abantu wenda njani nase silahlekelwa ngiloko ngaloko ukuthi bantwana mhlawumbe leyo center kumbe iwamithe onke lama requirements lakawashito DPM kulomthetho khishile kahle bantwana bayanakekelwa bayakhona kugeza geja bese ekugcineni bakhomba umlo omdzala emehlweni lolo lobagadzako bamtshele ukuthi hey, you can't tell me that.
Letinye timbunga tesekele nato.
Umntwana enkosi longisekhonda wale motion ushito lo phakamisele motion uthi ungasila bantwana ungagcina kwakhiwa inhlelo kubonakala ukuthi kushesha akube must kubonakala ukuthi kungena kanjani ngoba ukhanza ukuthi lapha sebakhona khona sebakhungekekile abasakhoni kuyamenyetwa nje inkosi yamemeta umhlanga kuyamenyetwa ukuthi bantwana bangakaba emhlangeni kuyamenyetwa lusekwane ukhanze ukuthi vele ngale mithetho yakhona bavalelekile
labantu labagcine labantwana mhlambe kutawusita kuphendule imbunga le sanza kusho la kude nazuka lesimbhadalako ngolabantu labantu lamakhaya from the goodness of their hearts bakhipha ekhikhini labo basinakele labantwana kuthi budget nje tsinele sitho itawu yakuphi kuphi itawu yakuphi kuphi.
Indlu isemukele lesishukumiso lesekusho ukuthi lemigomo seyitawusebenza masinyane. Tindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Themkosi Mavimbela nginasikhumbuzo Dlamini eParlamente.
Inhlangano yakamhlaba yetempilo seyinikelele live leSwatini ngetinto tekuvikela sifo semsheko icholera letifaka ekhatsi imithi kanye nemibhedze lelungela abantu labanale sifo. Yemukela lolu sito indvuna yelitiko letempilo Lizinkosi ithi imibili kuphela imibiko letfolakele lapha eveni yebantfu labatfolakele nesifo semsheko. Indvuna ithi ngesizatfu setikhukhula emaveni yabomakhelwane litiko lilungele kulwa nekwanza kwalesifo ikakhulu kulabo labaqhamuka baphinze baye kulamave latsindzekako.
Inhlangano yakamhlaba yetempilo seyesekele live leSwatini ngetinfo tekulwa nesifo semsheko icholera letibite imali lengetulu kwa $743,000 letifaka ekhatsi imibhedze nemithi kulokunye. Etfula lempahla losabambe kuba ngumphathi walenhlangano lapha eSwatini Dr. Godfrey Pisapoa uthi ke litiko lingayisebentisa lemithi lingameli timo letphutfumako.
Let's not say that these things have come for an epidemic, no. Let's immediately make a plan of distributing them to the health facilities and we begin using them straight away. If we need more, we'll add for more at a particular time. Let's not wait at all. Immediately let them go and they begin getting used. Because most of these things, as I said, gloves, IV fluids, cannulas, needles, giving sets, those mothers, those children, those sick people, they need them in health facilities.
Indvuna yelitiko letempilo Lizinkosi ithi ke live leSwatini selakhe luhlaka lolicacile lokuhlolisisa timo tebungoti strategic tool for assessing risk.
Currently, there have been 2 confirmed cases with no deaths. In terms of epidemiology, there's no linkage between the 2 confirmed cases, which also means there's a possibility that we could have concurrent spread in the 2 regions.
Le mithi nalolusito lutawetfulwa etibhedlela nasemitfolamphilo yakuleli. Kanti ke lenhlangano yakamhlaba iphindze yaletha libandla lelide latobukisisa lesifo lapha eSwatini. Itindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni nginavu Minkhwasinzinisa eMbabane.
Tingungu temali yelive setikhule tefika ku 9.3 billion emalangeni ngenyanga yamabasa kulomnyaka lokuyimali lelingana tinyanga letintsatfu temphahla letsengwa ngaphandle kwaleli njengobe loku ngiko lokubhekwe inhlangano yetimali emhlabeni iInternational Monetary Fund. Loku kuvetwe ngumphathi welibhange lelikhulu kuleli Dr. Philip Nis ngesikhathi yethula umbiko wekusebenta kwetimali kweminyaka lophelile emsebentini lebewubanjelwe eHappy Valley eZulwini.
Lo mbiko lowethulwe ngudokotela Mnisi uveta kwekuthi tingungu temali yelive betehle tefika ku 7.6 billion emalangeni ngenyanga yengongone eminyakeni lophelile lokuyimali lelingana tinyanga letimbili nengcenye temphahla letsengwa ngaphandle kwakuleli. Dr. Mnisi uthi kubhekeke ukuthi imali yemdula mphahla inflation ikhule ibe ku 5.56% kulomnyaka kanti ngeminyaka wanga 2024 utawuba ku 5.29% bese uyehla ngeminyaka wanga 2025 ube ku 5.14%.
Vele umnotho akusiwo lokhula kahle. Imbangela yaloku sitawukhumbula sonke umthelela we-COVID-19 nga-2020 kuya ku-2022. Lokunye lokubangela lo mkhuhlane losemnothweni ngunayi impi lekhona eRussia nase-Ukraine lebangela ukuthi kusupply kwema goods and services kuma economies kungahambi kahle mawuthi hlanganisa ke tonke letinto tibanga ukuthi umnotho ungakhuli.
Uphindze wachaza kwekuthi imali lenganga 4 billion emalangeni itawufakwa ku-Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
Sibuke ukuthi asifukule kuhlangabeta noma kuletha imali eveni si liste le bond eSouth Africa lekusho ukuthi sizakwenda the South African market, South African investors bathenge le bond le mali ikhona ekutawungena la ekhaya itawuhlangabeta tidzingo tahulumende ichubeke ihlangabete netidzingo tekukhulisa umnotho wesive seMaswati.
Lo mbiko uveta ukuthi imali yemaphepha lesetshenzisiwe kulele eminyakeni lophelile ibe ngu-6.8 billion emalangeni kanti imali lema-coins yona beyingu-34 million emalangeni. Edinzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Nelson Ngamandla nginavuma inkosi enzinisa ezulwini.
Losabambe kuba ngumphathi wenhlangano yakamhlaba yetempilo lapha eveni Dr. Geoffrey Bisoporwa uthi lenhlangano seyimemetele ukuthi umkhuhlane we-COVID-19 awusesiso kesimo lesiphuthumako emhlabeni. Dr. Bisoporwa uthi lenhlangano ithethe lesinqumo ngemuva kwekuthi yelulekwe libandla lelibuka timo tetempilo letiphuthumako ukuthi inombolo tebantfu labanalomkhuhlane setehlile. Dr. Bisoporwa uthi lokhu akusho ukuthi tinhlelo tekuvikela lesimo kufanele sale tishabalala.
There are certain standard operating procedures which operate in an emergency concern, where resources of WHO and other organizations, including the human resources, almost all get repurposed or focused to address an emergency. But considering the level of the emergency in terms of the cases, in terms of the severity, in terms of the death, we have reached a point where the committee responsible advised the Director General that can be now degraded. It means now we move from a situation whereby we stop repurposing all the resources of the organization, and by implication, the member states and other organizations to specifically COVID. But COVID remains a public health issue. It remains a public health problem. And all the measures which have been put in place to prevent and control the COVID-19 needs to be in place. For example, continuing with the vaccination, continuing with the preventive measures. For example, if you have a flu, cough, or those symptoms of COVID, to be in isolation or to put a mask.
Inhlangano yakamhlaba yetekudla iFood and Agricultural Organizations esekelele itiko letekulima ngemali lenganga 1.1 million US dollars. Le mali ke itawusita etinhlelweni tekulwane kuguquguquka kwesimo selitulu kanye nekukhutsata abantu labasha ukuthi bangenele tekulima. Mabhalane lomkhulu wetiko letekulima Sydney Smelane uthi lolusito lolungephansi kweluhlelo lwe-Technical Cooperation Program lutawusita ukuthi abantu labasha bachunyaniswe netimakethe ikakhulu labo labakhicita ema-baby vegetables. Simelane bebeka khuluma emhlanganweni nematiko latsinzekako kutekulima lobanjelwe ezulwini.
Litiko letekulima nenhlangano yetekudla i-FAO selisukumisa ngalokusemthethweni ulusito lwe-Technical Cooperation Program lomnyaka wa 2023 kuya ku-2025 lolubuke kutfutfukisa tinhlangothi letimbili. Mapanelo omkhulu etiko letekulima Sydney Smelane uthi lolu hlelo lutawusita kukhulisa tindlela temdzabu tekulwa netinkinga letikhinyabetwa kukhicitwa kwekudla.
Climate change ke sikhanza ibanga timo letifana nekwekuthi nangabe balimi sebalimile sibuke sibone ukuthi awunembala kuhamba kahle emasimini kodwa ukuthi kungakabi malanga mangaki bese liyaphuma ilanga mhlambe liyashisa likhotse konke lokho lebekulinyiwe. Sitakunaka lokuthi mhlambe la kithi even la Eswatini asikujwayele kangaka ukudla lama baby vegetables. But lama vegetables lawa lokahle ngawo asheshe amile akhule bese ayavunwa ayathengiswa. So sibukela ke export market ngokuthi singabafaka yini bantu labasha ukuthi bangene kule market le bakhone kulima lama baby vegetables bese ke sesiyawa exporter ayahamba aya kulamanye emave.
Lisekela lalomelele lenhlangano yakamhlaba yetekudla lapha eVen Khanyisile Mabuza uthi ke lenhlangano ifise kwakhela abamfu labasha ematfuba kutekulima.
Technical assistance to explore feasibility of inclusive agricultural community enterprise development and aggregating models which farmers can use it nasemabhange nakuphi to get funding. Lengakusho ukuthi the total contribution from FAO is 1.187 million US dollars, which translates to 21 million emalangeni.
Mabuza uthi lolu hlelo luhambisana nemigomo yakamhlaba kanye ke naleyo yahulumende weSwatini wekwakha ematfuba kanye ke nekulwa netinkinga letfaka ekhatsi kwesolakala kwemsebenzi. Etindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni nginathemba Shabangu ezulwini.
Umphathi welibhange lelikhulu kuleli Dr. Mnisi uthi babheke kwekuthi ungakapheli umnyaka losedulu ubese uphumile umbiko welicwaningo lwekuthi live lingakhona kanjani kusebenzisa imali letawatiwa ngele Central Bank Digital Currency. Dr. Mnisi ebekhuluma ehotela leHappy Valley ezulwini ngemuva kwetfulwa umbiko wekusebenta kwetimali kweminyaka lophelile welibhange.
Libhange nyalo libuka nalo sithi i-money noma i-electronic money sithi Central Bank Digital Currency. Ngalamanye amagama kutawufika isikhathi lapho khona uma lelicwaningo lusiniketa umphumela lokahle ukuthi sibe ne-currency longayisebenzisa letawusupportwa i-Central Bank umuntu akhona kuyisebenzisa lengaphandle ungasakhiphi nje lilangeni noma 2 emalangeni noma 5 emalangeni but ukhokhe imali le-digital ngile digital currency lebekade sikhuluma ngayo. Le project lena iyachubeka i-outcome yayo nje siyibheke ukuthi nga-October itabe iphumelele uma konke kuhamba kahle sitawugcina sesine what we call Central Bank Digital Currency.
Ngakulokunye Dr. Mnisi uphinze wexwayisa sive ngemali lengekho emthethweni leseyibonakala isebenziswa kakhulu kuleli.
Sexwayisa kakhulu nje sive semaswati ukuthi caphela imali le-stand lokwendeka ukuthi kulama ATMs uma utama kuyishaya iyabhoma le ATM kunendlela lekhona la kuyo bese seyicitha le inki ingcolisa le mali yangcola le mali ayisekho emthethweni ukuthi ichubeke isebende. So uma ke kuba nesigaba noma lapho ukhanzakala uyibona le mali noma ifike etandleni takho siyacela vele ukuthi iphuthuma uyoyibeka ebhange noma uyibike emaphoyiseni.
Dr. Mnisi uchazile kwekuthi uma live lingagcina lisebenzisa i-Central Bank Digital Currency akusho kwekuthi imali lekhona seyitawushabalala kepha leti mali titawusebenza ngekubambisana. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Nelson Ngamandla kunavuma inkosi enzinisa ezulwini.
Kutemidlalo umceceshi welicembu leMbabane Swallows Caleb Ngwenya uthi bende emaphutha lamanyenti emidlalweni wabo nelicembu leRoyal Leopard lokwende ukuthi bagcine bakhale phansi kodwa ke lokho kuyendeka emidlalweni webhola. Ngwenya bekakhuluma ngemuva kwekuthi ilicembu leMbabane Swallows likhale phansi emidlalweni weMTN Premier League ngamagoli lamane kulamabili.
Ngemuva kokukhala phasi kuRoyal Leopard balandzeli belicembu leMbabane Swallows batfukuthele bagwana lunwabu lapho khona babone ngathi umceceshi Caleb Ngwenya akakhona ukudlalisa kahle lo mdlalo lokwende ukuthi leli cembu lilahlekelwe mathuba ekuyomelela live emidlalweni weCAF Confederations Cup. Kodwa ke yena Caleb Ngwenya uthi emaphutha yinvo leyendekaka emidlalweni welibhola letinyawo.
We could have done better, but the mistakes cost us. It happens every day in football. Yeah, it's hard to take this, but the result, we have to take it because that is how it's it. We had hope for the best. We couldn't.
Edwin Matsebula weRoyal Leopard uthi bete bayidadishile yona indlela ledlala ngayo iMbabane Swallows.
Okay, let's go into it. From Emma games as well, I picked up the center backs they are very slow. Abasi quick enough. So Ganba Tanzania ufuna kuqala ukudlala lebhola then athi ke mina siba pressing high because of their weakness engabi slow engabi quick then what's benefit.
kanti yona imbabane solo senenzaweni yesithathu inamaphuzu lang-51 kanti emidlalweni wegcina itawudlala namanzini Sipets bese kuthi iRoyal Leopard isenzaweni yesihlanu inamaphuzu lang-39 kanti emidlalweni wayo wegcina itawudlala neGreen Mamba leyona ihlete esicongweni ngamaphuzu lang-58. Lobikile umsakathi Eswatini TV kutemidlalo ngilinda Dlamini embabane.
Tingaka lapha ekhaya bese kuphathele dona lomhla ekseni ngwane lomuhle sibahlola emakethe masibuya lungalele sits down with Sihle Ngabinza, who is the Domestic and Trade Manager ngaphansi kwe-APA, Eswatini Investments Promotions Authority. Ngayinzawo.
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3# and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Welcome back. Sivusele nawe losanza kuzivulela abezivetele earlier ukuthi isidaba esikhulumisana naSihle Ngabinze, long domestic trade manager engapani nehulumende Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority ngapani ngele nale khanga bahlanyele imali ema investors. Namhlekuseni ke isidaba esikhuluma kabandi njenge trade fair, iBuy Eswatini platform, upcoming trade events kanye nangema issues that are also affecting trade in Eswatini nekuthi ngabe vele mhlambe letinkinga leti tingacatululeka kanjani. Sidakumuleka ukuthi live leSwatini lisebenzisana nemavela amaningi etindzabeni te-import export trade kanye ne-investment, and one of these countries live lemangisi i-UK. Ngekusho kwe-report ye-Department ye-Business and Trade in the UK lokho kwemhla ka-3 May 2023, total goods and services between the UK and Eswatini was £23 million in the 4 quarters to the end of 2022, which is a decrease of 36.1%. Sifuna kukhulumisana naye Sihle lapha kuvakabani njengesimo noma ke status of trade and investment in Eswatini nekuvakabani nje ama challenges labhekene nabo bosomabhizinisi lapha ekhaya Eswatini. Sikhuluma ke kabandi nange trade fair letawucala ngaSeptember mhla ka-1. Sidakumula ke ukuthi kathi sagcina kuba nayo i-trade fair sagcina ngeminyaka wa 2019 lokho seyibuya nyalo nga-2023 ngato tizaphu temkhuhlane COVID-19. Sivusele Ngabinza, siyabonga ukuthi ube nathi namhla ekseni. Siyajabula nje indaba letimnanzi te-trade fair ukuthi yabuya after 3-4 years, but nje singakangeni kuyele yendzaba leyo sifuna ukukhuluma nje ngama issues noma ke tindzaba nje trade and investment lapha Eswatini njengoba ubuke tona wena as i-domestic trade and investment lapha ka-IPA. Kumbe kuva nje simo noma ke the status of trade and investment la Eswatini ukuthi sime kanjani? What are the challenges bathini vele bosomabhizinisi lapha khala ngako kakhulu?
Asibonge kwemukeleka e-studio. Siphinde sivusele nayo mbukele ekhaya. Basically ngathi in terms of trade we are moving in a positive lane, but utholuthi kukhona vele lokhanza ukuthi kusitfonsela emuva esibosomabhizinisi ekhaya. Masibuka nje ama-trade balances ethu cishe siyakhona ku-exporta cishe kakhulwana nalesi-importako. Yize ukhanza ukuthi lesi-importako lokuningi tindlu longakhanza ukuthi mhlambe ngasiyadendela khona lakhaya. City produce letsine sikhona ukufaka emakethe khona lakhaya kucishe kwehlise lawo ma-price ukuthi le production yendiwa lana other than ukuthi siyoku-importa chamuke from emaveni angephandle. Mawukhumbula kahle nje tsatsa wethu cishe konke ema-food items 80% wawo siwathatha from even leli bomakhelwane South Africa nakulamanye amaveli angephandle. So uyokhanza ukuthi tibese setiba nekudula leto timbahla leto ngalokuthi le ndlela yokuthi producer nokuthi transporter zifike la khaya bese sekufaka imali letsite kuleyo makaphi yaleyo mthengisi. Kanti kube bekuthiwa leto timbahla siyakhona kudenda la khaya bekutacishe kube ngconywana. Siyabona tinsengo siyabona ama-products lafana nabo shukela leswa exporter cishe ayenyuka ngekwenyuka kwetinyanga eminyakeni. Siyabona ukuthi cishe ne-level yakho khona ku-computer timakethe letivulekile tangephandle la ukhanza khona ukuthi sine preferential advantage la ukhanza khona simbahla letsuke ekhaya Eswatini tibheke ngephandle tingena ngekuthi tingabhadala ama-customs duties but only country taxes letikhanza ukuthi tiyawabhadala maningena lawo live. Loku senda sibe competitive compared to lamanye emaveli akhona eSouthern Africa.
Okay. Kuva nje ukuthi ngabe vele mhlambe ama-opportunities wona la khona for bosomabhizinisi laba kule trade and export sector ingabe vele mhlambe athini wona, because I think you've stated ma-challenges ukuthi sasena challenge ukuthi sikhone kuthi khicitela thine lapha ekhaya Eswatini. Ingabe vele mhlambe ama-opportunities that are available for entrepreneurs athini?
Cishe ama-opportunities maningi kakhulu tsatsa wethu. Sitawabhesa etimbahleni lesitingenisako lesitebitsa sisipheceleti import substitution. Masibuka nje ngibekuyisa nje i-stable food umbila lesiphila ngawo. Uyokhanza ukuthi ungeniswa udliwa abantu uphindze udliwe natilwane, meaning ukuthi ne-yellow base nekhona. Eminyakeni nje years period ukhanza ukuthi si-importa umbila lo lebo 200 something million emalangeni, of which kuthi kusomabhizinisi noma ukuthi kumuntu there is a potential ukuthi singakhona ukuthepha ini leso space leso simaswati sithathe leyo opportunity. Mawunganaka nje kulamalanga tsatsa wethu simo selbisi even i-supply cishe iyancipha, i-price yenyuka yedulu. Lesi sibonile titolo uyokhanzela ibisi ukuthi kuyashoda and futhi ama-prices akhona durile. Lokusho ukuthi bosomabhizinisi balakhaya banayo le opportunity ukuthi bangangena leso space leso baproduce lelo bisi. Even ekufika etilwaneni like just meat and meat products, sinakhona i-shortage iyangekuthi iyenyuka kancane even meaning ukuthi balimi kutafuna ukuthi banyuse amasokisi nanabo bangene kuma-feedlots baproduce etilwane. Senda-ke i-exercise yesendawo kulamalanga yekwenda ema-value chain analysis basically. La sikhona sibuta nalabo labayimarket ekugcineni ukuthi kushoda kanganani ukuthi bakhone kusupply loyo mthengi la even. Sikhanzile nje for example mangabekisa ukuthi tinkhomo la even tincane letiproduce wako, tincane timbuti letiproducako, tincane tingulube letiproducako kumitha le demand lekhona la Khatseveni. Uyokhanza ukuthi incumbi setigcine tiyachamuka emaveni angephandle boBotswana bo-South Africa. La kuma opportunity kulabo labafise kungena espacini satodona tingomo. Ngiphinze ngibuya nje ekuspace setipikili, just a simple thing isipikili nema-screws, even nema-gutter pipes. Ema-companies lakhaya aka kuproduce loko, so sikhona leso sikhala leso lekusomabhizinisi angena thephe ini abona ukuthi ngabe yini la ngayisebenta ekuthenini aproduce lawa goods noma lawa ma-products lathingwa live.
Kule era nje yabo COVID-19 mo 2019 2020 ingabe vele sona simo bese kanjani nje in terms of kukhicitwa nje kumkhicito lapha ekhaya Eswatini? Ingabe vele mhlambe bosomabhizinisi balimala kanganani bona?
Sishayeke kakhulu kuleso sikhathi leso, saphize sacathelwa kunatimbi tase-Russia ne-Ukraine. But-ke akusiko ukuthi angeke sikhone maybe kubuya sibosomabhizinisi phinde sitilungise singene emkhicitweni lo ngathi ungagcina umitha idemand local consumers. Mawukhumbula kahle sethu COVID kwaba ne shortage emave avala ema products latsite kuthi angasa exporter sala consumer khona lapha ekhaya. Sikubonile ke khinyabeteka kakhulu ekuthenini asisakhona mhlawumbe kuthi sikhona kungenisa lo timbahla lesingathatha from emave nangephandle. So kube kufanele ke sithathe advantage lapho, but the challenge but was that ukuthi I raw material incumbi yayo sithatha ngephandle emaveni ngephandle ukuze sikhona produce. But ke akusiko ukuthi siselele emuva kakhulu. Sisengakhona maybe ukuthi siphinde sitibuthe sibosoma business singene lawo ma spaces sibuke lawo ma opportunities la khona then sibone ukuthi ngabe si investa kanjani siphinde sichubeka kanjani kwenda lo supply ibe khona from within the economy.
Okay, all right. I think bengivele ukuthi ngifuna nje ukuthi sithinze on a few topics le sector trade and trade and import sector. I think lenye in le platform nje lesingakhuluma ngayo ngile platform lena isukumisa ngaso sikhathi se COVID le by Eswatini platform. I think I platform le kahle kakhulu le for emaswati nje lafuna ukutithengela at the comfort of their home, and I think ngithe kuyibuka buka nje nayo. It's quite interesting ukuthi kunetinto letiningi longatithenga lapha nama sectors lahlukahlukene bo tourism longakhona browser through. Ingabe vele mhlambe yona le platform lena kuba khona kwayo kowasithe kanganani bona bosoma business kanye nema consumers.
Say introduce ngesikhathi se COVID iBuyEswatini.com likhasi leliku internet lesoma business can take advantage ukuthi avule online shop yakhe khona. Ifacility lesilethe ke mahala singeSwatini Investment Promotion Authority. Sitama kulekelela soma business ukuthi since umhlaba umuva ubheka ku digital space kasingasaleli emuva nanathi singihulumende asivete ema platforms la tokhanza khona ukuthi soma business anga benefit khona ku internet platform. iBuyEswatini ke tsatsa wethu kuyi platform lengathi khona soma business angavula stolo, it's like ngathi shopping mall basically la bosoma business bahleli khona ngekwehlukahlukana imikhakha labachamuka kiyo, especially labo laba registered business people laba tawufaka khona ama products abo bafana nokuthi bathengisa ngamalini bavula nini bavala nini ema holiday nini. I-interest khona ke tsatsa wethu emave angephandle sibonile angena ahlola ukuthi ngabe yini la ngayitfungatha eSwatini ayikhona ukuyitfola ukuze bakhona ukuthengiselana. Na local buyers nawo sobonile ayangena kule platform kutfola ukuthi ngabe yini la ngayitfola la ngayisosa from eSwatini. Kayigcini ke kuthenini kube netitolo bese siba nemininingwane letsite ngayo yona itrade. Mangabekisa nje itrade portal ya live la kangwane ihleli khona kuleyo platform leyo. Kuphinze kube nema links la tawukhanza ukuthi atakufaka etintfele ti promote on trade. For example mawufuna kuvaka abantu noma kuthola kabantu ngokuthi ema tariffs eme kanjani engenise impahla noma ikhiphe impahla evela kangwane. I tariff book ya Eswatini Revenue Services ihleli kuyona leyo platform. Siphinze futhi sibe na leyo platform sisebenzise host nema seminars lo tawukhanza ukuthi siwenda virtually le tawukhanza ukuthi soma business yakhona benefit akiwo lamanye akhona savela ahleli khona leyo platform lesisiwendile ukuthi angaphinza awabuke etatfole lolo lwati lelitsite.
Okay, so ngimaphi kahle la ngitiphle titolo letikhona yini nje kahle kahle lengayithenga kule platform nje nanti ngiyavula nje konke kudekekile
bandlalekile tsatsa wethu titolo tindlalekile kakhulu. Kusuka ku handcraft uyofika ku hardware ungene ku retail cishe kukonke nalabo bema services nanabo bakhona kuleyo platform. It's just a platform lesiyende yaba mahala kusoma business angati registera atifakele ama products akhe. I-access yayo ke soma business unayo to the platform 24/7, meaning ukuthi we've got i-control cishe siniketena soma business ukuthi anga uploada phinza khiphe ama products lawa khiphako or anytime angakhona faka ukuthi esitokweni sinani namuhla sekuphele ini ukuthi abakhona ini kusasa sivula ngabani. Cishe isitolo nje le khona lomthengi angakhona maybe ku communicator nasema business through ama direct emails la ngawasenda through that particular company.
Okay, so samabhizinisi nje lofuna ngena nyalo namuhla sengakhona ningena yena direjistele athengise ama products akhe.
Yes, sethu bangakhona kungena batingenele bahlele ku ekhaya. Le platform is www.buyeswatini.com. Lo buying lo kuthenga BUY eswatini.com. Cishe platform la ungena khona register khona company yakho uqhubeka utrade khona.
Okay, so ngifuna sikhulume futhi upcoming trade events latako lapha eSwatini. Ngiyadwa ukuthi akhona futhi lamanye lendekako internationally nje kuyahanjwa kuyewa eChina noma nyakuphi ngaJuly kunalenye exhibition eSwatini which is going to be part of. But ngifuna sikhulume ngema trade events that are upcoming lapha ekhaya eSwatini, including yona trade fair lesayigcina kade in 2019 that's coming back nayo. Kuma nje kusingetha sithombe ngawo lama events lawo.
Sibonga ema institutions ku realize ukuthi we are the right partner basically in terms of tindzaba trade and exhibition. We are partnering with a lot of institutions in Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority ekhosteni tindzaba letihambelana ne trade ekuthenini siya exhibita noma ama seminars. Sitabe sine budlelwane thile lestabenda ne Manzini City Council la kutabe kune World Fair Trade Day mhla ka 12 May kaManzini la stabe sichaza khona singape ukuthi ngabe siyini ukusidakala njani wena usomabhizinisi either informal noma formal space. Informal space ungasonzela kithi sikuchazele kabantu ngalelo langa ukuthi senda in. Siphinde sibe ne partnership lekhona ne Ministry of Labour phindze ne Ministry of Commerce la sitabe khona senda i-career Eswatini Career Expo itaba kuma regions ecishe onke itawo qala mhla ka 17 kuye kuyizogcina mhla ka 24 nakhona lapho sitabe sine exhibition phindze sibe nema seminars sitabe sikhulumisa khona tihloko letitsite letingasita umntfwana umfundzi noma loyo lesacedzile isikole ukuthi what opportunities are there labangawathatha bona bachubeka bayembili. Bese sesiba nemicimbi omkhulu ke lesubuke ukuthi utawuba khona ngaSeptember lokathi sawugcina eSwatini International Trade Fair emalungiselelo ngekhathi kithi engapaneni sesicishe sikuphushile lokuningi tingapane tiyafaka ema application forms yabona ukuthi ngathi ilisasasa lisedulu kakhulu kathi sayigcina simaswati.
Kukhona yini lokuhlukile nita nako as ipa nyalo nje lokuni nebuya nawo lomsebenzi we trade fair ku 2023 buka ukuthi sawugcina nga 2019 mhlawumbe kukhona ama developments lasendekile lenwangedile nje incorporate kuwo lomsebenzi.
We are planning ukuthi sipartnerishe na bosoma business labakhona event. Kungabi ukuthi ngumsebenzi wa Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority kodwa awube umsebenzi wabo soma business noma lawo ama companies la provide them services ukuthi partnerishe kulawo ama activities la cishe endeka ku International Trade Fair. Ngitawubekisa nje kuma seminars. We've partnered with some companies la ngolathe wona no we want to take the platform sihambe nayo sisharishe lelo lwathi through tingulumo. Phindze futhi kube ne open day official opening day nanayo sifuna kuyenda kube business round table la soma business ohlala phansi athekele lwati lelo lalifuna khona kulithatha alisebenzise businessini. Sesinalamanye ke ma activities la khona ngekulandzelana kwawo lokufaka ikhathi exhibition cishe silungiselele kakhulu thatha wethu kulonyaka mhlambe siyende ibe different ngaleyo ndlela.
Okay, so nitaba digital as well, nitaba online, mhlawumbe kulama seminars nje lamanye nitakhona ukuthi ningene live on your social media pages ukuthi labanye labangakafinyeleli bakhona ukubukela ukuthi kukhulunywa ngani.
Definitely my sister, i-movement vele cishe isiphushela ngalapho in terms of ku-adapta very fast ku-ITC space. Sitawenda kube virtual phindze kube physical, sitakhona maybe kwenda ukuthi kuloyo naloyo lotawufisa maybe kuba ingcenye yalo umsebenzi ngalelo langa kanti ngakakhona physically kuba nathi akhona kuyi-accessa and futhi sisumisa partnership nama media houses lacishe ende ama activities abe live ukuthi mhlawumbe inanayo i-broadcastwe ibe live kutonke tingoni mhlambe letingabe broadcaster ngalawo malanga lawo mhlawumbe siyende nanayo ukuthi umlaleli losekhaya noma umbukeli losekhaya akhona maybe kuyi-accessa yona i-Eswatini International Trade Fair 2023.
Okay, so nasibona nje udana tinzabade bo registration ngabe bosamabhizinisi labancane lize ngalabo le ku register linganani njengoba sovetele nje ukuthi seticele tinkampani register ukuthi nje ndawuvala nini vele nanibuka nje sitawucala nini isikhala.
Masibuka kwanyalo ema-application form no ngathi sitawushodelwa indzawo yokuthi maybe sigcine siba-admita bonke labo laba-aplayile but tinombolo tiyenyuka and tinyuka very high. Le expectation bekungasiyo lebesigadze kangako besi-benchmark kulo 2019 mhlazane sigcina but ngathi tinombolo tiba siduru kakhulu. Basukumile-ke sibosomabhizinisi labancane ku-formal space phindze naku-informal space bayafuna bayingxenye yayo international trade fair. Ema-companies la chamuka from international space meaning foreign countries nanawo acishe maningana ke lo nyaka lesitawuba nawo lakhaya-ke ma-companies nanawo cishe asukumile ayafuna lokutiveta emva kwesikhathi lesithe ukuthi bendani noma sebenta ini ba-diversify babheke kumaphi kuma-products or services. So ngathi sitayisukumela leyo challenge mhlambe sibone ukuthi singeda ini la sikhona ba-accommodate khona cishe bonke ngoba le nombolo cishe tenyuka. Bosomabhizinisi kungaba nje ukuthi kubadisa ukuthi ama-applications asoil avulekile and si-expect ukuthi siwavale mhla ka-31 kule nyanga lena. Then bese sisachubeka ngama-processes lamanye.
Alright, sibakhulu Ngamiza, thank you so much kusiniketa nje leyo insight ukuthi nisebenza kanjani emalungiselelweni ekulungiselela iSwatini International Trade Fair lesilo sayigcina ngomnyaka wa 2019. Asibahlali temngathi silabe ne traffic update.
Lesi sikhathi lapho khona emaphoyisa agubha kuba khona kwawo even.
Kulapho kukuthathwa khona sive ukuthi sike sihlale phansi sibuke bumcoka bemaphoyisa empilweni yabantu. Siphindze sibuke indlela letinsha tekuphepha kubo bonke bucala lobuveta sihloko. Sive sakangwane siyakhunjutwa ukuthi singawafaki emaphoyisa etinkulumeni tepolitiki ngoba liphoyisa alingeni futhi alingenelani nepolitiki. Emaphoyisa alwa nebucala netingoti temgwaco kuphela nje. Ingako emaphoyisa athi wonke umuntu eveni akahlale ngaphandle kwekunceneka ukuthi angahle ahlaselwe tilwane tasendle. Umuntu lohlala eSwatini akatiphilele atisebentele ngaphandle kwekwesaba kuhlaselwa kwemucwa nekucekelwa phansi kwempahla yakhe. Nawe wena lophathekile emaphoyisa athi digulele kahle uze uphile ngaphandle kwekuphatamiseka. Lokungenteka ngekuthi tidlova tingene tihlasele labo labakunakekelako kuleyo ndlu. Sive lesihlakaniphile nguleso lesiphakamisa kusebenta kwemaphoyisa nabo bonke labalwa nebucala. Ngale kwaloko timbungushe tiyawuwangenela emazinyane kungenamuntu ekhaya.
Lo mlayeto niulethelwa ngemaphoyisa eMbube abambisene nomsakato wetithombe.
Welcome back. Sikufusela na unasanza kusivulela kulesikhathi sitawubuka simo semgwaco lomhla ekseni na Constable Ndombendle. Asikufusele fa ukuthi ngabe kuhambeka kanjani nomhla ekseni?
Ngikuvusele Makakula, ngivusele naye umbukeli wekusile breakfast show. Imigwaco elivela kangwane sesihlolile nanamhla ekseni, imigwaco leminengi iyahambeka ikakhulukazi leyo lenelitiyela. Kepha leyo ledelitiyela etindzaweni letiningi telivela kangwane umgwaco uyashelela kungaba nje kukhuthaza bona bashayeli basasebenzisa leto tindzawo ukuthi baqaphele kakhulu basayisebenzisa leyo migwaco. emadolobha elive ahloliwe nawo tibane temgwaqo tiyasebenza kuwo onke lamadolobha ngaphandle nje kwelidolobha lelikhulu laseMbabane la tibane temgwaqo letilapha eMangwaneni tingasebenzi leto-ke sesinemalanga tingasebenzi kani-ke letibane leto lomgwaqo loyo ubandi kakhulu lokwenta ukuthi bantu labahamba ngetinyawo babe nebulukhuni nangabe laba betimoto bangabameli khona lapho sikhuthaza nje ukuthi sishayelisane kahle sawusebenzisa lowo mgwaqo ukuze ukuthi wonke umuntu aphephe. Sisesekhona khona edolobheni lelikhulu laseMbabane umgwaqo losuka khona ekhaya edolobheni ubheke khona eSport umgwaqo loNgsomhlolo Road solo uvaliwe lo mgwaqo loyo kulandzela kona ukuthi kuyakhiwa. Siyakhuthaza nje ukuthi labo labaqhamuka khona kubongwenya bonkoyoyo abe andesinseko ukuthi basebenzisa letinye tindlela tekungena khona ekhaya edolobheni eMbabane ukuze ukuthi bangatikhanzise babambelelekile. Umgwaqo lomkhulu osuka ehekeni laseNgwenya ubheke khona kaManzini lokufaka ekhaya naye eMalagwane kude lokuthi Kinyabeto lokukhona nyalo ekseni. Kanti-ke lo mnye umgwaqo lesiwuhlolile umgwaqo losuka khona eSiphofaneni ubheke khona eBig Bend kusuka lapha emaphobeni kuyawufika khona eBig Bend emshineni lapho siyathi imalangeni lamahle ukuthi lesi sikhathi sekuvunwa kwawo umoba lokwendekako ke lapho lamaloli nakaphuma la ekhasi emasimini kulandzela phela ukuthi kunelusakalo lunenge kulamalanga khona lapho kube nakangena la kulelitiyela ukhanze ukuthi sekangena nalolusakalo lunenge bese ke sekuyashelela khona lapho sikhuthaza nje bonke abasebenzisa wona umgwaqo losuka khona eSiphofaneni ubheke khona eBig Bend ukuthi bashayele ngalokukhulu ukucophelela khona lapho. Kanti-ke letinye tindzawo ikakhulu kati nje tindzawo takugege noma ke sibuke nje umgwaqo losuka khona enhlangano ubheke khona esicunusa tindzawo letinengi talo mgwaqo loyo tiyashelela kwatise phela ukuthi lo mgwaqo loyo usede litiyela ngabekisa nje lapha emabheleni esilaheni noma ke nawuwela lapha umfula indlotane nakhona kuyashelela kakhulu lana usuka ke lapha emahlathini uyawuphumela khona lapha eMbonzela nakhona ushelela kakhulu sithi nje bashayeli abaniketa netigaba tekuhamba la khona kushelela khona bangatikhanzi sebagcina bashayisana kwatise phela ukuthi imoto lona ishelela eligakeni ayikhoni kulawuleka ngale kwaloko Magagula naye umlaleli imigwaqo elivela kaNgwane iyahambeka ngaphandle nje kwaleti lesengishido tikinyabeto kungaba kusisela yena umbukeli usuku loluhle naloluphephile basetawusebenzisa yona imigwaqo elivela kaNgwane.
Sibonga Constable kusiniketa la yombiko asibahlole emakethe sibuye sithathe indaba tethu ngaphandle.
Using an ATM is a simple process. You insert your card, punch in your PIN, and withdraw your money. However, this simple task can open you and your finances up to certain dangers if you are not careful. Always exercise caution whenever you are transacting at an ATM machine.
Good morning and welcome back. Let's take a look at international news. dead bodies were still being recovered on Monday from 2 villages in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, where floods killed more than 400 people last week in one of the country's deadliest disasters in recent history.
Residents in the village of Bushushu make their way through what was a vibrant market just a few days ago. Heavy rain overflowed the neighboring river last Thursday, washing away everything in their path in a matter of hours. This woman had relocated here with her family in January from a neighboring province, fleeing the fighting between the Congolese army and the M23 rebels. She lost her 2 children, her 2 sisters, and her parents in the floods.
I no longer have a family, and I no longer have fields. Now I have to find a place to sleep. I know that my husband is alive, but the children are dead.
Hundreds of bodies have been recovered, but many remain missing, and survivors are struggling to get hands on basic essential goods.
We think that many bodies washed up in the lake. They'll be visible after 3 days, and we wonder how we'll get through this. We don't have body bags, and we don't have enough funding for what we do.
The disaster in the Democratic Republic of Congo comes after neighboring Rwanda and Uganda were also recently ravaged by floods. Climate researchers say global warming is the culprit behind the torrential rainfall in Africa, and highly vulnerable communities on the continent, which contribute the least to global heating, is bearing the brunt.
The fighting has impacted vital infrastructure and caused the closure of most hospitals in conflict areas. UN agencies have warned of humanitarian catastrophe if clashes continue.
This baby was born just weeks ago. Already, it's witnessed shelling, street fighting, and the loss of its twin.
When the bombs started falling on the hospital on April 20th, we were told we had to evacuate because no one knew what would happen next. So we scrambled to rescue the 2 babies. There were no ambulances, and one of them died before we could reach Al Nada Hospital because he was lacking oxygen.
Fighting erupted between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary RSF group in mid-April, bringing the country's already fragile health infrastructure to its knees. Here at the Al Nada Hospital, staff have had to make difficult choices about which services to maintain.
We decided to keep offering obstetrics and pediatric services. Since the start of the conflict, these services have not been available at most other hospitals. A donation from the Sudanese American Physicians Association has allowed us to keep the hospital running.
Despite this, staff say that stocks of medicines are running out. They fear that, like at other hospitals, services at Al Nada could soon collapse. According to the UN, fighting in the Sudanese capital has left only 16% of hospitals fully functional. Many health facilities have been shelled. Traveling to reach facilities that are still operating can be dangerous, and supplies are running out or impossible to reach.
The UN says more than 4 million people in Nigeria's northeast are facing severe food shortages as global aid is stretched thin. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs took journalists to the region to see the worsening situation. Viewer discretion is advised as certain visuals may be disturbing to sensitive viewers.
This bustling city does not reflect the terror that lurks on the fringes. Islamist militants at war with the government. But even here, young kids are reeling from the impact of devastating food shortages worsened by conflict. Days ago, Bintu Hassan's 2-year-old son arrived at this hospital ward, wasted and hypoglycemic. She says she's already suffered too much loss.
I gave birth to 4 children, but 2 died due to malnutrition. I have 2 left, and this one is also sick. I was referred to this place.
More than 700,000 kids in Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe states suffer from severe acute malnutrition, according to the United Nations. The UN says the situation could get worse between June and September, the so-called hunger gap period when food stocks from the previous harvest traditionally run out. Last year's bumper harvest was disrupted by Nigeria's worst flooding in a decade.
With 600,000 hectares of farmland destroyed, washed away, there will in the immediate future be serious food shortages.
And there isn't enough food aid to go around. This is Ran, a community near Nigeria's border with Cameroon. Residents say no aid has arrived here in 8 months. Kelu Modu says without much food, she couldn't breastfeed her baby and she became malnourished.
When I gave birth to this baby, there was not enough breast milk to feed the baby with, and the baby started vomiting and also had diarrhea.
The food shortage is in part a result of Russia's war in Ukraine and the recent crisis in Sudan. But officials say Nigeria's inflation and recent currency reform policy also constrained people's ability to buy food. UNICEF Nutrition Manager Karanvir Singh says despite crucial aid diverted to other global emergencies, Nigeria is still getting food supplies.
The global package for different, because of different emergencies in the world, is shrinking. But presently we are well placed. But of course, we would need continued support.
Nigerian security forces have significantly degraded the fighting power of the militants. But the country is still at war, and until that is over, millions will be fighting a different type of war, hunger.
Some 23,000 people have fled ethnic violence in northeast India that has reportedly killed at least 54, although there was no new major violence overnight.
Their homes have been burnt down, their cattle stolen. Some of these evacuees were chased by mobs of almost 2,000 people and forced to hide in the jungle for days as ethnic violence broke out between the Kuki, Naga tribes and the Meitei community in India.
Since we don't have villages, houses, everything since it was burned down, then we have no place to stay there.
They burned down everything. There is about 92 houses, to be exact. And we no longer dare to stay there again without any kind of protection from the state government.
The clashes began on Thursday after the Kuki tribe protested against the Imphal Valley-based Meitei community, who makes up over 50% of the state population, and had requested a scheduled tribe status. The status gives protection and privileges like government jobs and subsidized education to the most marginalized groups in India. Naga and Kuki tribes residing in the hills and forests, making up 40% of the state population, already have scheduled tribe status. They claim to be the most marginalized group and believe granting status to the Meiteis is an infringement of their rights. The Indian Army deployed thousands of troops to the state to restore order and evacuate survivors to army camps.
And so in the last 2 days, I think almost 2,000 plus is what we have been evacuated. And to their areas of interest where they want to, we have been providing a safe package. And like these are the cookies here, similarly has been Meiteis. Today morning I also evacuated around 160 Meiteis.
Military patrols are taking place every few kilometers and a shoot-at-sight order has been issued for extreme cases of violence.
On May 8th, the head of the Wagner mercenary group said his troops would stay in the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. Days earlier, he had said they were ready to pack up and leave, blaming the Kremlin for the deaths of thousands of his troops due to a lack of supplies.
It was an ultimatum, and it appears to have worked. On Sunday, the head of Russia's powerful paramilitary Wagner group said his troops would stay in the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, the site of the longest and bloodiest battle of the war. Days earlier, he had said that they were ready to pack up and leave, blaming the Kremlin for the death of thousands of his troops due to a lack of supplies.
We've been promised as much ammunition and weapons as we need to continue with our operations. We have been promised that everything we need to prevent the enemy from cutting our supplies off will be sent.
Prigozhin also announced that the Russian Defense Ministry had assigned General Sergei Surovikin to coordinate between the ministry and Wagner. He described him as the only man with the rank of army general who knows how to fight. A slight seemingly aimed at Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Chief of General Staff Valery Gerasimov, whom he had singled out in his diatribe on Friday. On Saturday, Prigozhin had said he would pass the torch to Ramzan Kadyrov, the head of the Chechen Republic. Kadyrov, who has ruled Russia's Muslim-majority republic Chechnya for the last decade and a half, readily accepted the challenge, saying his troops were prepared to take over Bakhmut. Ukrainian troops have been pushed back in recent weeks, but have clung on inside the city. The battle there has cost both sides thousands of lives. For Russia, capturing Bakhmut could open the road to other cities in the Donbas region.
Cooler weather across Alberta on Monday helped firefighters battling widespread wildfires in Canada's main oil-producing province, but the government said it could be months before all the blazes are brought under control.
Here in Alberta, residents continue to flee their homes in search of safety as wildfires continue to rage across the Western Canadian province. Hot and dry weather conditions have led to rapidly spreading fires. 1/3 of the blazes were listed as out of control.
It's not very surprising. It's very dry out there, and it's been very dry for a number of years. Where do I go from here? Well, I guess we just wait and see when we can go back home and see if we have anything to go back to.
The province has been ablaze for the past 5 days. So far, more than 29,000 people have been forced to leave their homes, and thousands more have been told they may need to leave at any moment. According to emergency management officials, scattered showers, particularly in the south, have somewhat improved the situation. But officials warned that the relief only concerned certain areas.
At the moment, there are 108 wildfires burning in Alberta. 31 of those are out of control. And in the last 24 hours, we noted 16 new wildfire starts. The total area of the province burned this year has now passed 375,000 hectares.
On Saturday, a province-wide state of emergency was declared. Despite the deployment of exceptional means, officials say they expect strong winds to cause the fires to grow bigger over the next few days.
Some 1,679 people, including 660 children, have been evacuated from areas near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, a Moscow-installed official in the Russia-controlled parts of the region of Ukraine said late on Monday.
A long queue of civilian vehicles leaving the Zaporizhzhia province in southeastern Ukraine. These images published on the Telegram account of the governor claim to show evacuations in towns near the region's nuclear plant. As shelling intensifies on the front line, IAEA Director Rafael Grossi says the situation around the station has become potentially dangerous.
We must act now to prevent the threat of a severe nuclear accident and its associated consequences for the population and the environment. This major nuclear facility must be protected. The IAEA will continue to do everything it can to help ensure nuclear safety and security at the plant.
The Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, Europe's largest, was seized by Russian forces in the opening days of its invasion last year, but is operated mostly by a Ukrainian workforce. The warring sides have frequently exchanged fire near the facility, with each side blaming the other for the damage. The UN watchdog warned in March that the plant was running on diesel generators to keep vital cooling systems running after power lines were compromised from the shelling. Grossi has spent months trying to persuade Russian and Ukrainian officials to establish a security zone around the plant to prevent a potential radiation leak, amid renewed fears over intensified fighting as Ukraine gears up to launch a long-promised counteroffensive. Kyiv's forces say they plan to retake Moscow-held territory, including in the Zaporizhzhia region, around 80% of which is held by Moscow.
As prices for food and goods remain high in many countries, some economists say the persistent inflation is partly due to corporate profit-seeking.
At the International Monetary Fund in Washington, researcher Daniel Lee says there is cautious optimism about global inflation levels easing this year.
But this is going to be a long fight. We don't think most countries will get to their inflation target until 2025.
Different factors have contributed to advanced and developing economies exceeding their inflation targets.
One was the boost to energy prices and food prices, partly from the war in Ukraine. Right. On top of that, a lot of countries are dealing with labor market shortages, not enough workers, that's driving up wages.
In capitalist economies, when demand goes up, prices also rise. But some analysts see an unusual form of inflation, even as in their assessment, demand holds fairly stable.
Generally, companies that are quite close to consumers, so at the end of the supply chain, if you like, these companies have been able to persuade their customers to accept not just the cost increases, but the cost increases and then a little bit more. And that little bit more is, of course, an increase in profit margin.
It might not be a sustainable approach, Donovan noted.
If consumers start saying, actually, that's not a fair price increase, I'm not going to pay that, then what you see is companies starting to worry that if they raise their profit margins too far, their brand value is going to be damaged.
The National Retail Federation represents a full spectrum of companies. Their lead researcher affirms that consumer demand has increased dramatically and describes the profit-led inflation arguments as, quote, very simplistic.
Every single day, many of our members think about lowering prices. The problem, though, in some cases is that, when the prices of goods are rising all over the place and inventories are low, then, retailers have to be able to pass some of those costs along to consumers.
What some may see as price gouging, others may view as businesses charging what the market will bear. Some may decry excess profits, while others note that maximizing profit is the norm in a free market system. Economists say profit can also rise through good management practices.
If you have better clients, or if you have a better human capital inside your company, definitely you're going to have the potential of actually having larger profit margins.
Cooling consumer demand can force companies to abandon price hikes and rein in inflation, a key goal of the U.S. Central Bank, which recently boosted interest rates for the 10th time in just over a year.
French President Emmanuel Macron led the traditional ceremony on Paris's Champs-Élysées on Monday, commemorating the day that marked the end of World War II in Europe in 1945.
Fearing protesters against the president's unpopular pension reform, turnout was kept low on the Champs-Élysées, where the president relit the flame on the tomb of an unknown soldier. And the few who attended were searched and closely supervised. His next engagement was at the prison in Lyon, where resistance leader Jean Moulin was once incarcerated. The president paid homage to the resistance spirit.
Every time the French Republic is threatened, abandoned, or betrayed, the French people stand up. The memory of those who passed through this prison lives on in these walls. Resistance fighters and free Frenchmen.
This visit too, though, happened in closely controlled conditions, a wide security perimeter drawn to avoid protests. But the words of the president did nothing to assuage the anger of the 5,000 in the streets of Lyon, according to the CGT union.
I'm here to show my complete opposition to the pension reform, and because Macron's policy goes against what these people fought and died for. So the fact that he came here on this day to commemorate their death, it's a disgrace.
Since the president bypassed parliament to increase the French retirement age despite widespread opposition, his public appearances have often been met by protesters banging pots and pans.
Germany is home to the world's largest Turkish diaspora, which in the past has shown strong support for Erdogan, who is trailing in opinion polls and his conservative AK Party.
Outside the Turkish consulate in Berlin, the diaspora appears divided. For some, there's no doubt
Recep Tayyip Erdogan must be re-elected, and voters abroad can help make it happen.
The Turks abroad are generally pro-AKP, and that will also be the case this year.
People in Turkey need someone who is dedicated more than ever.
A big majority of Turks in Germany, some 1.5 million people, did vote for his AKP party in the last election. But this time around, there seem to be more voters happy to say they want him out of office.
I just voted against Erdogan. I don't want to see him in power anymore.
This is so important for our country and also for our people because, after 20 years, we want something new.
Supporters of opposition candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu are well organized. In Berlin, 7 minibuses bring voters to the polling station every day.
Today, I already drove 8 people and made 2 trips.
We need the participation rate to increase, and it seems to be going well. In Berlin, it was 25% in the last election, but if we reach 50 or even 40%, we have a good chance.
The AKP, on the other hand, has abandoned the large election rallies it has held abroad. In 2015, President Erdogan himself campaigned in Germany. Still, behind the scenes, his supporters in mosques and other venues are active. An AKP deputy was filmed in a small group threatening to destroy the opposition. A more discreet but very aggressive campaign, according to this journalist.
Since last September, more than 120 AKP MPs, mayors or ministers have travelled to Germany and other European countries. In reality, this is the most intensive campaign ever conducted by the AKP.
Intensive because campaign organizers know this. Turks voting outside of Turkey could tip the balance. The presidential and parliamentary elections are forecast to be the tightest in 20 years.
Surveys carried out since devastating earthquakes on February 6th show Erdogan's main challenger for the presidency, Kemal, ahead of him in the first round of voting. If no candidate secures more than half the votes in the first round, a May 28 runoff will be held between the 2 leading candidates.
Straddling the east-west divide, Recep Tayyip Erdogan has shown himself both a mediator and an agitator on the world stage. He has tightened ties with China to the unease of his European neighbours and NATO allies, but has the trust of both Putin and Zelensky, and has been hailed by East and West for his mediation between the two sides.
You're doing a great job. I just want to thank you.
Thanks to your mediation, we've been able to move forward.
This after a Turkish brokered deal last July got grain shipments moving once again across the Bosphorus Strait after the war had blocked exports. But his position is distrusted in the West as he has refused to follow suit with his European neighbours and apply sanctions against Russia. Any sense of allegiance to his European allies was torpedoed early in his leadership. After taking power in 2002, he sought EU membership, but Turkey's accession bid was frustrated and blocked. Since, Brussels paid Turkey €6 billion to prevent refugees from travelling illegally into the EU through Greece. But Erdogan has frequently threatened to drop his end of the deal. Another current cause of tension, Turkey is using its veto within NATO to prevent Sweden from joining the alliance.
A leadership change in Turkey would be in Europe's interest, as their relations with Erdogan are seriously degraded. From an American perspective, it's perhaps less simple. They take a strategic view vis-à-vis the ongoing war in Ukraine.
With the two candidates close in the polls, all eyes are on the last week of campaigning.
King Charles thanked singers who performed at a commemoration concert in his honor at Windsor Castle for a great treat, as a long holiday weekend of celebrations drew to a close on May 8th.
Katy Perry, Lionel Richie and Take That were among the stars who performed at King Charles III's coronation concert on Sunday. Ahead of the event, which was attended by some 20,000 people, Prince William made a speech during which he paid tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth II.
As my grandmother said when she was crowned, coronations are a declaration of our hopes for the future. And I know she's up there, fondly keeping an eye on us, and she'll be a very proud mother.
Earlier in the day, the Prince and Princess of Wales arrived in Windsor, greeting and taking photos with excited crowds, while thousands of street parties took place across Britain. Some who attended the so-called big lunch events were keen to celebrate the coronation. Others viewed the occasion as an opportunity to bring communities together.
To have this celebration of a new king, who I think will be fantastic. I think his heart and mind are in the right place.
I'm not a big royalist myself, but for me, it's more around getting the neighbours together, getting to know each other, and just a good sense of community.
At Downing Street, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak hosted a coronation lunch. His guests included community volunteers, Ukrainian refugees, and US First Lady Jill Biden. King Charles and Queen Camilla have thanked those who marked the occasion, adding that they're deeply touched.
27 minutes after 7, let's take a break. We'll resume shortly.
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3 hash and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Europe that is devastated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which started on the 24th of February 2022. Now, as the world suffers the effects of the war, Eswatini is not exempt. The need for firm and intentional collaboration multilaterally has never been more important. I am joined by EU Ambassador to Eswatini, Desislava Shumelova. A very good morning, Desi. Always lovely having you here on the show. How are you this morning?
Kusile, good morning. Always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Desi, a special day for Europe, but I just spoke on the the devastation that it's currently facing with Russia's invasion to Ukraine. Let's talk about the premise of the day being clear. That the foundation is firmly set on the idea of peaceful coexistence. Talk to me about how much of a threat this war is to this ambition.
It is very sad, as you said, that for a second time I'm come here on Europe Day and there is war in Europe, obviously because the founding principle and the founding premise of the European Union is to never have war on European continent again. And I must say that since the Schuman Declaration that you rightly pointed created the idea of European solidarity and cooperation, which then came to give birth to the European Union, political, economic, and security and defense bloc of 27 countries in Europe. We have war in Europe. We have managed, however, since the 50s, in the aftermath of the Second World War, to preserve peace in Europe. We have enjoyed everything that peace brings. Which is opportunity to thrive, to reach out to others, to build partnerships internationally, including with Eswatini, to work intensively on the world scene as one of the global actors, together with our member states, for peace and stability, and for conflict resolution.
Yeah. conflict resolution is very important. We've seen you, supporting Ukraine in particular with, a lot. Talk to me about the support that you're providing to Ukraine right now in this very, very, very urgent, situation.
We stand firmly with Ukraine because Ukraine is not the aggressor in this war. Ukrainian men and women have been showing absolutely amazing and admirable bravery in defending their country, defending their homes, their hospitals, their children.
Yeah.
So we stand firmly with Ukraine, not because the moral values are on their sides, they're defending their right to exist, but because we have always been, as the European Union, strongly supporting the multilateral order, an order where no country, no matter how big or powerful, can decide that other countries have no right to exist, where every country has to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of other countries. So we stand firmly with Ukraine because they're defending their country, because historically truth, fairness are on their side.
Yeah.
And when I speak about the support, first of all, symbolically, today on Europe Day, which is a very important occasion for Europeans to celebrate our joint efforts to have peace, our unity, our commitment to the values that underpin the European Union, which is freedom, peace, democracy, the rule of law, human rights, of course. So we all stand for that. And today the celebration is headed by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who is in Kiev. Last night, the Ukrainian President Zelensky confirmed that from today, Ukraine will celebrate Europe's Day as well. So it shows how close we have come together with Ukraine because of the unjustified and provoked Russian aggression on the country. And our solidarity is wide-ranging. We are supporting the country with altogether up to now 37.8 billion euro. And this ranges from macroeconomic support, because while Ukrainians are mobilized to support the country fighting with the Russians, pensions and salaries need to be paid. The economy needs to keep working. There should be electricity, there should be food on the tables. So we support Ukraine with that. We support Ukraine with humanitarian aid. We have over 7 million Ukrainian refugees, mostly women and children, in Europe. So we support them. We have started thinking about the reconstruction of Ukraine, and we support more recently Ukraine with military assistance, which is quite unprecedented. So Mr. Putin, with his aggression, has pushed the European Union towards more sovereignty when it comes to our ability to defend ourselves and to support our neighbors, because Ukraine is a neighbor. And to finish on a very positive note, Ukraine has applied, and on 23rd of June last year, we have given Ukraine a status of a candidate country to join the European Union. It is a long process. There are stringent criteria. You have to be a free market economy, you have to be a democracy. But Ukraine has decided absolutely, with no doubt, they want to take this road. And we are ready to support them on this road towards joining the European Union.
Yeah, certainly looking forward to that development, and I'm hopeful, and I know for sure that it's going to work. It looks to be, quite a meaningful criteria that you're talking about there in resolving some of the, it is the most urgent, I believe, right now issue in the world. And I'm saying this because we are living in trying economic times right now globally, and most of it is because of the effects of the war itself. I want you to talk to me about, Ambassador, the support that you continue to support Eswatini with. Particularly, I've seen you, on the news, committing to sustainable agriculture, committing to a lot of other developmental projects in the country. Talk to me about some of those projects.
Thank you very much. Indeed, the European Union has been and remains a long-standing and solid partner of Eswatini. We are supporting the development objectives of the country. We are supporting the country in becoming economically successful. We are supporting country in its attempts to eradicate poverty, to redress inequality, which remains a huge problem in the country. And we have done it via support for free primary education, something that the European Union supported for a number of years, and then the government continued to support with reforming the school curricula. We do believe and trust that education is extremely important. At the same time, we support the economy of the country via a long-term assistance to the agriculture sector. As we speak, we have 3 big projects in the agriculture sector to do with irrigation.
Okay.
So a lot of farmers, smallholder farmers, have access to irrigation water by water schemes. We support the country to diversify the agricultural production to make it indeed, as you said, more climate resilient. We support smart agriculture. We support new crops that need less water but also can be exported more easily. We support the country with trade facilitation under the EU SADC Economic Partnership Agreement, where Eswatini has tariff-free, quota-free access to the European market, but most importantly, in fact, we aim to support regional integration where Eswatini can trade more and benefit more from trade in the region. We support Eswatini also in food production because you still import more than 80% of food, while the country can produce food and can also process this food to export and to make sure it fulfills also the demand in the market. Turning to other ongoing projects, we have been looking at social protection in the recent past. We have been supporting the country in the very difficult time during the COVID pandemic, not only with vaccines via the COVAX, but also with the mitigating the impact on COVID, because it has been quite serious on the economy as well. We have worked and continue to work with the Bafalali Red Cross to make sure that cash transfers are reaching the most vulnerable of the population in different parts of the country. We are supporting the country together with the World Food Program, again with cash transfers, but also supporting people who have been affected by the torrential rains in November last year. And of course, I cannot not mention that our major focus in the next 7 years is youth. And you rightly mentioned that we are looking at how to support youth in particular. Why? This is a very young country. Over 17% of the population is below 35. But there is a huge unemployment problem. And we would like to see Eswatini youth reaching its potential. And the country cannot afford to lose the talents, the energy, the innovation that comes with youth. So our partnership program with Eswatini in the coming years will be heavily focused on creating the right skills for employability and entrepreneurship for youth, to make sure that they can create their own businesses, but also have the skills to find the jobs and contribute to the economic prosperity and to the progress in the country for their own benefit, but also for the benefit of everybody in the country.
You speaking of, the European Union placing the youth at the center of its cooperation with Eswatini. The latest development we saw last week, was it this week or last week? I stand to be corrected, but the induction of the Youth Sounding Board within the European Union. Talk to me, Ambassador, about this development. We saw 15 young Eswatini being called a new European Union Youth Sounding Board. Their committee, what are they supposed to do? What is their role?
Indeed. So I was very, very happy last year to welcome and to sign a memorandum of cooperation with 15 young Eswatini, both young men and women from various backgrounds, walks of life, and from all the 4 regions in the country, and to designate them members of the Youth Sounding Board, and also to ask them to be the EU youth ambassadors in the country. Why? We live in a very complex world. It's quite difficult to navigate it. There is a lot of disinformation, misinformation. The world is rapidly changing, and there are lots of global challenges that we face together. You mentioned climate change. We just went through a pandemic. The very negative consequences of the Russian aggression on Ukraine I felt throughout the world via high fuel prices, high food prices, and who is going to solve it? The youth. It is young people that come with new ideas and new ways of doing things. But also it is young people that are often left aside, and they have to implement decisions they did not participate in.
Yeah.
So the idea behind the Youth Sounding Board is exactly sounding, is to hear the voices of youth.
Yeah.
We have been very successful with this idea because at Brussels, level in Brussels, our commissioner in charge of international cooperation established a first international youth sounding board 2 years ago. So she had 25 young men and women from all over the world advise her. So this is the idea, that we get the opinions, we get the wisdom and the ideas of young people when we conceptualize, but also when we implement our programs and projects in Eswatini to make sure that they're relevant to the youth and to make sure that they're inclusive of the youth.
Yeah. And as a young person myself, I feel very motivated to see young people being involved, in engagement processes and participation processes, lawmaking and fostering law processes. You have spoken on disinformation and information, and I'm reminded of, a speech that you delivered on Wednesday last week. It was Press Freedom Day. You were with other local media houses on, the importance of press media freedom. Talk to me about the importance of, press freedom.
Press freedom is at the foundation of all other rights, because people cannot understand even and fully enjoy their rights if they don't have right to accurate information. And we rely on our journalists and media workers for that. Press freedom is fundamental to any democracy. And we know that the journalists and media workers in Eswatini have been under a lot of pressure. In the last year and a half since I'm here, I've seen them attacked, their properties attacked, and very often there is pressure for them to take sides. But journalists are servants of truth. They're asked, and their vocation is to speak truth to power. And in the European Union, we stand for that right. That's why I invited journalists to listen to them, to allow them to have an exchange about the challenges they are facing, but also to share with them my concern about lack of objectivity sometimes, about the phenomena of disinformation, misinformation, especially when it comes to digital media, to share with them what they're doing with the EU, at the EU level, to try to counter disinformation. We have a site which is EU versus disinformation, countering narratives that are not based on facts, and we rely very much on journalists to make sure that their reporting is fact-based, and they give opportunity to the public at large, to all citizens, to form their opinions and take part in the political processes in full awareness of the facts. That's very important. We need to know what reality is to be able to deal with this, especially when there's so many different challenges and contestations out there in a rapidly changing world.
Yeah. I want us to go back to what you mentioned earlier. You spoke about, your commitment to making Eswatini competitive in its capacity to be competitive in intra-African trade, regionally in particular, but also globally as well. I mean, the Ministry of Commerce right now is working, they're being steadfast on a commitment they made under the African Continental Free Trade Area. I mean, last week it was this week actually, we saw them working on the validation of the draft of the AfCFTA. I want to, you to speak more on the program that you have to improve Eswatini's capacity in this regard.
Thank you very much. The European Union strongly supports the African Continental Free Trade Area. We do believe that our regional economic partnership agreements, and the first and most successful of those is the economic partnership agreement we have with the southern African countries, and Eswatini is part of that, the SADC-EU Economic Partnership Agreement. And it provides for removing barriers to trade, facilitating trade, market access, working on competitiveness, removing barriers, including sanitary, phytosanitary barriers, customs barriers. And we support Eswatini, in fact, via this economic partnership agreement, because all the trade facilitation measures, customs rules, rules of origin rules, all the other measures would also support the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And also we support Eswatini via COMESA. And you're right, indeed, we had the COMESA Secretariat here last week looking at supporting trade and competitiveness. So in Eswatini concretely, on top of the two lines of support via the regional trade agreements, we have concrete projects to implement our economic partnership agreement to better tap the opportunities for export, but also we are working to capacitate small and medium enterprises in particular to be able not only to do business better in the country, but we support their export readiness, we support their access to markets, to regional value chains, adding more value and bringing back more value to the country. We're very passionate about this. We have a big program about private sector development and business climate, and our ambition is to have more than 1,200 small and medium businesses capacitated.
And I suppose that is why we see you working with women in trade and development as well, for inclusion as well. I think that is two birds with one stone. You've mentioned the cross-cutting issues of the most urgent global issues right now, which is climate change, unemployment, health issues as well. I think we have, how many minutes? We have about 3 minutes. I want you to talk to me about your commitment to help the health sector of Eswatini as well, because we've seen you visible there as well.
Of course, the pandemic has shown us that in the face of global health emergencies, first we have to stand together. So our lessons learned as the European Union is that we have strengthened our support for the global health system with funding, but also with scientific and research cooperation. And concretely, we are supporting vaccine production in Africa. And in Eswatini concretely, of course, one long-standing problem in Eswatini is the HIV/AIDS pandemic. And the EU is one of the biggest supporters of the Global Fund. So we will continue, and we have increased our funding for the Global Fund. We want to see the progress made remain, and Eswatini on the track to keep this progress. And I think, again, if you allow me, the role of youth, young people, is absolutely crucial. The need to keep to safe sex practices, the need to be informed, the need to know how you can protect yourself. So information, not to become complacent, because we know that the biggest number of new infections are among the youth, which is very problematic. It also has socioeconomic roots. We should not forget that there are young girls in this country that have no choice but to resort to transactional sex, and usually this is not protected. So opportunities for young people would also create the right socioeconomic foundations to fight AIDS and other diseases.
Point, yeah.
And for this, we need to empower youth. And that's why we're focusing so strongly on youth empowerment, on making sure youth voices are heard by the EU, but also I believe this is part of the youth policy. And I was very reassured to hear the Minister of Youth, Culture and Sport say that this is very much the policy now of the country, listening to the youth, involving youth in decision making that is relevant to their future. And for that reason, I'm extremely happy also to say that today, on Europe Day, we are launching the EU Bushfire School Festival, working with youth and providing them with the opportunity to join one of the biggest festivals in Africa, Bushfire, opportunities to express themselves via art, to learn via art. I'm very thrilled with the partnership with House on Fire in that regard. And today on Europe Day, we are launching the Schools Festival, and the EU Schools Festival this year takes place on Africa Day, on the 25th of May. So I'm very happy and much looking forward to share with young children from all over Eswatini, including children with disability. We are working with UNICEF on a big project to help children with disability reintegrate in school, catch up with everything lost during the pandemic. So I can welcome everybody in the country to join us at House of Fire on the 25th of May for the EU Bushfire School Festival to celebrate the creative powers and the creative urges and talents in youth in Eswatini. And I can tell you that I'm always impressed with how much young people can express and bring via art.
Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. Always lovely to have you here to provide your insights as well as the programs that you have in developing the nation of Eswatini. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's Shumelova Desislava, the EU ambassador to Eswatini. What I like about her is her passion for the youth in Eswatini, as well as for inclusion. She's also touched on, people with disability, but, most importantly, her imploring the youth to take advantage of the demographic dividend that we have in Eswatini in, developing the country, as well as the many cross-cutting issues that the country faces. And she did mention that that is going to solve a lot of the socio-economic problems that the country faces. We go for a net break. When we return, we wrap up the show.
Watch local TV on the go with the Eswatini TV app for only 20 emalangeni. Come on. Do the most with Eswatini TV app. Download from Google Play Store or App Store.
We're good together. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Minutes before 8, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Luliso sifike emaphethelweni ngicabanga ukuthi conversation lobe nayo na Mr. Nkabinza ngendzaba the trade and investments dilinke nje kahle netindzaba latitsenzile na EU ambassador Desislava Shumelova ekutheni livela kangwane in its commitment ekuthuthukiseni tona tindzaba the trade. We do have a big advantage, but we need to take advantage vele of the benefits that it's going to bring lapha eveni.
Yeah, right. right, thanks so much Mbukeli for joining us today on the show. Sasana ukuthi nikufokotele kuba nathi kanti mawusanza kuzivulela, don't worry, ungakhona ukusibukela ka YouTube page lethu Eswatini TV. Have a lovely day. We'll see you tomorrow on Sale kahle.